Raider Nation, what's good? Welcome into another episode of the Silver and Black Sports Network podcast. Now, this is not part of our normal schedule, but after that CFP semifinal matchup between Dante Moore and Fernando Mendoza, we had no choice but to drop another episode for you. And because of what we saw on that stage, it might have actually changed everything, right? One guy struggled, one guy rose to the occasion in every way possible. And right now, many Raiders fans are making it very clear how they feel about it all. So today we're breaking down what I took away from that game, from Indiana's massive win over Oregon. And I'll be honest, after watching it, I think there's a pretty clear direction here, and I don't think I'm alone in feeling this way. But I do want to know where you guys stand. So it's time for our question of the day. Is it over? I want to know, are you turning in the pick for Fernando Mendoza right now? I think a lot of people are, but if you're not, what more do you need to see in order to do that? Or what would you like to see them do with that pick? Drop your thoughts in the comments and let's talk about it. And real quick, we have picked up a ton of new subscribers lately. You guys are awesome. So if you are new here, welcome to the channel and welcome to the brand. Make sure you check us out at silverandblacksportsnetwork.com and subscribe to our free Raiders newsletter. You can't beat it. It's a great way to support us and what we're building here. And yeah, it is free. Like I said, it's the best deal in sports. So we appreciate you guys. With that all out of the way, let's get this bad boy rolling. What a night it was for Fernando Mendoza, guys, huh? Yeah, we will be talking some Dante Moore. I've got plenty of thoughts to get to on him, but this podcast is obviously going to be a lot about Fernando Mendoza. What this kid has done in 2 playoff games is completely unreal. Just even only looking at the stat sheet, it's crazy. 31 for 36 with only 5 incompletions in 2 games. He's thrown for 369 yards and 8 touchdowns. That's just unreal against 2 teams who wildly outman them in terms of talent that they would face. It's just wild when you go and look at the fact of Alabama and Oregon and the number of former 4- and 5-star recruits that they have in their starting lineup. And then you look at Indiana, they have 1 former 4-star recruit in their starting lineup. Fernando Mendoza, Curt Cignetti, and this Indiana team have done so much more with less than anybody else out there, and it is insane at the rate at which they are dominating these college football blue bloods. And honestly, when you go back and look at this game and take a look at Fernando Mendoza's game, I don't know what more you need to see, right? Like, let's not complicate it. I think we all know that the Raiders need to turn that pick in, and it needs to be Fernando Mendoza, right? I mean, look, not to be too inflammatory over 2 games and all that stuff, but what he's done in the playoff has only bolstered and backed up more of what we saw during the regular season. And that, to me, is where you look at it and say, hey, look, that kid looks like the number 1 pick. I know some people, like Bomani Jones and some folks out there, have said that they don't think he is it. Well, I think they're kind of probably going to eat some crow after this performance here in the playoff, and then now he goes and takes on Miami. But man, with Mendoza, go back to the regular season, look at some of those games, some of those pressure cooker moments where he comes back, drives down the field, makes some big-time throws in order to help them be able to win. They were down at Penn State. They came back and won at Oregon, I think is what it was. If it wasn't that, he did make a crazy throw there to win the game at Oregon. Again, going on the road to be able to do that. They beat Ohio State. And again, now in the playoff, Alabama and Oregon. 2 blue bloods in the sport of college football. It's just been so impressive to see. And to me, the way he's doing it, he is that master diagnoser. He figures out where that ball needs to go and delivers it there. He doesn't overthink it. And I know a lot of people try and say, like, oh, the knock on him is that he stares down his receivers. That's what some of the people out there, some people in that crowd are saying. And that's a crazy one to me because, again, he is that master processor. What he's doing is he's diagnosing the defense, figuring out what they're doing, and he's putting that ball in the right spot. It's not staring him down if you're putting it in the right spot where nobody can get it and getting it out there quick and trusting what you see. I do think, yes, he's going to have to process more in the NFL because, let's be real, like, they disguise things much better at that level. So there's going to be a bit of a learning curve there for sure. But this kid, everybody talks about the fact that he's a nerd and he over prepares and all that stuff, and the amount of studying that he does. That's what you want in a quarterback. A kid that does that is going to be much more prepared than the guy who's just got all the talent in the world going out there on Sunday. So give me a kid like him. Give me a kid like Fernando Mendoza that has all the processing ability there, and then the want to of digging into the weeds of all the preparation and all that stuff. I think you pair him with a Tom Brady who needs to, again, we've said it many times, needs to be more involved and needs to be there on a regular basis. But having Tom Brady in his corner to help bring him along, Man, I mean, even more so. I know a lot of you guys, again, like I said, want to see him in silver and black, and I think it's probably going to go that direction. I bet you Dante Moore does indeed go back to school after this one. Like I said, we'll dive into him a bit more. But in terms of Fernando and maybe not going through his reads and stuff like that, I saw a couple times where he was looking left, and maybe it's to look off a safety or whatever, but he's looking one way, goes through it, and boom, delivers the ball right where it needs to be. There's a couple times, yeah, some high balls and stuff like that, and in this one, he also showed a little ball security issues and stuff like that. I believe he had 2 fumbles in this game here against the Ducks. So, yeah, you got to shore that up. But again, you look at a lot of the positives, and in terms of what he's done in terms of the accuracy, I detailed the numbers. That's insane, off the charts. And then also the simple fact, too, when you look at what this kid is doing from an athleticism standpoint. The Athletic had an article come out where they talked to executives in the NFL, and they all kind of said different things that they need to see out of the top quarterbacks in this playoff. At the time, they were looking at guys like Ty Simpson, Dante Moore, and also Fernando Mendoza. The thing for Fernando Mendoza, what they said is they need to see the athleticism at a more consistent pace. Well, shoot, he's done that in both of these college football playoff games, again, against teams that wildly outmen them in terms of athleticism and stuff like that. So he's hung right there with them. The kid is, 225, 230-ish pounds, whatever, a big kid, solid kid, and has shown that he can move. It might not be the prettiest thing in the world. I saw some folks on Twitter saying that he looks like a baby giraffe out there running around, and I can totally see that. But it's effective, and he runs at the right time. So I think, again, Raider Nation, I've been following along on Twitter and seeing the responses that you guys have had, and it's very clear you guys want him to be rocking silver and black. You guys saw it in the thumbnail on this one and in the title. Don't overthink it. Send that pick in, and I think that honestly is what the direction is that the Raiders will go. There's obviously so much more that needs to happen from then till now, but sitting here on January 9th, I just don't know what would all of a sudden come up that would take you off of Fernando Mendoza. And that leads me into Dante Moore as well. I think he's probably going to go back to school. There were all the rumblings of it. And then I think his play in the playoff, even though they did win and win pretty dominantly in that game against Texas Tech, they come out in this one and lose in a big way to Indiana, who they've done that to a lot of teams. But for me, I just think you go back and you look at that game against Texas Tech. He was a check down king, which there's nothing wrong with that. Like, he made the safer plays and stuff, but he did miss some throws, on the outside lanes here and there, and missed some opportunities to take those shots over the top. In this game here against Indiana, the rush was coming his way, hold on to the ball a bit too long, get sacked, doesn't show off the athleticism in the same sense. Obviously, that first throw on that out throws it behind the late and behind the receiver on an out, which are two things you cannot do. And boom, that's a house call. You're all of a sudden put behind the 8 ball real fast right out of the gates in that game. And obviously, I think he responded very well on that next drive, led him right down the field, was decisive, was reading the defense very well, delivered the ball where it needed to go, and then threw a nice ball for that touchdown as well, identified the safety that kind of disguised or stopped disguising, that is, a little too early. And so he was able to diagnose and hit the double move for the touchdown. Was impressed with that one. But just overall, I think it's clear, the kid probably needs to go back, work a little bit more, refine his game, fine-tune it. He is, again, only 20 years old, and his starts are only in the teens, if I remember right. So I think we probably see Dante Moore go back after this playoff performance for him. It wasn't like you left wowed or anything like that. And again, Fernando Mendoza did just that the other way around. Now, I do want to go back to Mendoza because, again, that's my take on Dante Moore. I think he's going to be a really good quarterback, and I think he'll be a really good quarterback among the group of other quarterbacks coming out next year, which, again, is a stacked class, but I think he'll be a good quarterback among that group. I'm real curious to see what does indeed happen with him, though, if he decides to go or stay. I'm real curious. But again, just given where we didn't walk away thinking wow, he lit it up or he really improved his draft stock, I think he showed that he's a young guy that probably does still have some more that he has to prove, So that's why I think we're going to see him go back. Now, in terms of Fernando Mendoza, like I said, a lot of the knocks were people saying he doesn't go through his progression and all that stuff. We talked about that already. The other thing is people are saying you don't draft Fernando Mendoza right now. Because the Raiders have so many issues and stuff like that, which is true. The Raiders are a lot further away than just a quarterback, but you don't just keep kicking the can down the road at quarterback. You eventually have to address it. You know what I mean? And when you're up there and you have a kid that's done what he's done on the biggest stage, wins the Heisman, and also throughout the season in a conference like that, at a school like Indiana, doing more with less than many other people have done and probably would do, you take that kid because he looks like he's that dude. I've heard so many different comps thrown out about him. I've heard some people say he's Joe Burrow. I've heard some people say he's Matt Ryan. I've heard some people say he's Sam Darnold. And I'm hoping they're talking about this version of Sam Darnold. But I think Raider Nation would take any one of those guys based off of the quarterback play that they have had in recent years. But man, if he is Joe Burrow, good God, you take that guy. You don't punt on it because you take him and then you take advantage of that rookie contract and you build around him. You don't just like, oh no, hey, our team's not there yet, so we're not taking that guy. That's an insane argument to have, I think, in my mind. Because again, when you draft a quarterback high, you do have him on that rookie deal. You take that $100 million in cap space that you have there and you invest and build around him. Fix that offensive line. Bring in the right coach, all that stuff, which we'll get to in a second here. But you don't pass up on a kid like that just because, yeah, you have more holes and you need more draft capital and stuff like that. Like the Raiders aren't trying to win right now. Spytek made it very clear that they're looking to build for the long term. And even though it'd be great to win 10 games next year, that's not in their sights. And so, again, that's why I think you say if you're in position to grab your quarterback, which is something the Raiders have been just on the outside looking in for so long, they finally have that opportunity. He's there. You take him. Again, like I said, do not overthink it. Run that thing to the podium with a call, whatever the heck you got to do. Let Roger Goodell know, hey, he's our guy. And then you go and figure everything else out around him because it's so much easier to win in the NFL when you have your quarterback. We saw even Joe Burrow early on in his career, he was able to overcome a really bad offensive line. Obviously, it came and bit him in the butt there at the end of the season, but overall, he was able to overcome it. So can Fernando Mendoza do that? I don't know, but at Cal, he had a pretty bad offensive line and still played pretty well. So we'll see how it goes. Haven't seen him in a ton of adverse situations this time around here in the playoff. I'm real curious to see how things go for him against Miami, which in itself is just a really cool story and opportunity for this kid. He was a 2-star recruit. I don't know the whole situation of whether or not Miami offered him or not, but 2 stars, I'd imagine he didn't. That's why you go to Cal, and then obviously ends up transferring to Indiana. Now he gets to go home, play in Miami against Miami for a national championship. That's insane. Miami's front, obviously, really good. They got Ruben Bain Jr. there. So maybe he'll be tested. Obviously, Indiana has become the team that is just so well prepared in each and every game that they come out in. But let's see if Cristobal can kind of match wits there with Curt Cignetti in this one. Obviously, Cristobal is one hell of a coach. He's going to have those guys ready to play. So that's a game I'm real excited to see. Again, maybe we do see Mendoza in more of those pressure cooker type situations or when he's getting pressured. I want to see what he acts like in those situations. But again, with what we've seen and what he's had in front of him thus far, the kid has been lights out. The fact that you only have 5 incompletions, have thrown 8 touchdowns and over 300 yards is nuts. Like I said, he's been the beneficiary of a great running game, but hey, you cannot hold that against him. Like he goes out there and plays with what he's got. They've dominated everybody else, and he has made the throws when the opportunities have been there to do so. And also, too, his receiver, Elijah Surratt, man, that's an interesting combo right there for sure. The way that those two connect on those back shoulder balls, they are lethal when it comes to that, and it has been a lot of fun to watch. Obviously, the Raiders have a lot of needs as we dove into. I'd be real curious to see if they look to Surratt maybe at some point here. We have seen some teams, we talk about Joe Burrow, they go and draft Jamar Chase as well, pair him with his old with his old receiver. And so that's something the Raiders could do. The Raiders, again, do need a true X. I'm not saying Surratt is Mike Evans, but we all know that John Spytek comes from Tampa Bay, where they had Mike Evans, another true prototypical X-type receiver. Now, obviously, there's a height difference there. I think Surratt is 6'2", nowhere near as big as Mike Evans, who's 6'5", 230-something, and Surratt doesn't push that much weight. But, man, that kid is a great possession-type receiver. Will go up and get it. Again, the continuity between him and Fernando is just on point, and it's been beautiful to watch in a lot of different situations. Last I saw, he did have a 3rd-round grade, at least according to ESPN. I didn't look how long ago that article was written, so that's on me, I'll be honest. But they were breaking him down. Real curious to see what it looks like for him when he has come through in so many different situations, not only this season, but also here in the playoff as well. And this is a kid that's been productive everywhere he's been, moving up the ranks and just continues to, take those steps forward. So I'm real curious to see what the scouting process is going to be like for him. But man, 2nd or 3rd round, real curious to see if the Raiders look at him and maybe try and add him. But again, like we said, they have so many different needs. Got to address the defensive line and build around Max. Also, obviously, you're going to need some help in the linebacking core and especially along that offensive line. I personally would like to see the Raiders invest in the offensive line, maybe in the second round, early. We've seen them go with some third-round picks in recent years. But I think, again, go back to the well like you did with Jackson Powers-Johnson a couple years ago and add another offensive lineman if there is one of those dudes in the second round. Real curious to see how they do that. But in terms of the coaching search, we dropped our podcast. You guys were great. The reviews were through the roof on that one. Cody obviously brought the heat. I love bringing him on for those shows. After we taped that, some real interesting developments with Harbaugh becoming available, John Harbaugh, I always screw up their names, with Harbaugh becoming available, and then also Mike McDaniel hitting the open market as well. Look, Harbaugh's a great coach. He is obviously much older. I believe he's 64. Not much older, but I believe he's 64. I don't think he's coming to Vegas. Yes, he'd be in a good position to be able to build a program. I just don't quite see it. But in terms of Mike McDaniel, look, he's going to be a hot name. I know he interviewed in Tennessee as well. That's one the Raiders, I think, definitely have to look at because of his creativity offensively, and that would be a big get for them. I don't know if that necessarily does happen, but man, a name to look at because of all the craziness that he's done offensively and the success that he has had. And then again, letting him be able to pick a quarterback who is a processor, like a lot of people said about Tua, not to compare Fernando and Tua, but they said that Tua is one of those guys that can process and boom, deliver the ball. Look at the success at times that they did have there together. So real curious to see how the search kind of pans out with him. I thought the Davis Webb stuff was really interesting. The more I read into him, the more I look into him and hear about him, it's more intriguing because, again, he's 30 years old. He's so young. We just saw David Blau get promoted to offensive coordinator. I know there's a big difference between offensive coordinator and head coach, but we saw Blau get that job with the Commanders after Cliff Kingsbury left. I'm curious to see how things develop in terms of, Davis Webb going forward with them. I thought Aaron Davis, and I don't remember your Twitter handle, man, but we've gone back and forth on Twitter a handful of times. And so if you're watching this, thanks. I appreciate the, back and forth all the time. You're a very knowledgeable fan, and I enjoy just fun conversations. But Aaron brought up the fact that, like, hey, hire Davis Webb and let him develop and grow into the role. Like, he might not be ready for it now, but maybe he could be later on down the road. And it made me think a little bit, just because it's like, look, we're always, not always, but a lot of times we're like, okay, we'll let a player develop, but not a coach. You want the coach to be ready right now. And I think that's an interesting deal because he's 30 years old. Maybe he's not ready now, but neither are the Raiders, is what Aaron brought up. And I thought that was very interesting because it's like, hey, yeah, you bring him in Spytek, Brady, everybody in company, and obviously this isn't the organization necessarily to develop a coach, but you're moving in the right direction, get all those football minds together and help this kid in Davis Webb, who is a very bright and fast riser in the coaching ranks, come in and learn how to be a head coach, build an offense, all those different things, pick a quarterback, and they can all kind of grow and develop into those roles together. I just thought that was really interesting, so I did want to bring it up on the podcast here, but I'm getting interested to see how it all pans out. We are taping this again, like I said, on Friday night after that college football playoff game. Clint Kubiak did indeed interview with the Raiders. He was probably watching Fernando Mendoza as well. Real curious to see what Clint would do, especially if he is that Sam Darnold type player. If Clint were to come here with the Raiders. I don't think that's necessarily going to pan out, but that's the guy, like I said, I've been pounding the table for a lot recently. But now, honestly, I don't know which way I would go for the Raiders in terms of their head coaching search because there are so many interesting options and all those different stuff. But after talking to Cody, I do have some questions about Clint Kubiak and in terms of the way that things have been built up there by Mike McDaniel up in Seattle. And I trust Cody. He's a really good football mind. He said, he's like, that seems to be Mike McDaniel's team. And when you go back and look at it and you look at the track record and what they've done, I think Clint is good in where he comes from. He's been around a lot of good coaches, but Mike McDaniel really has gotten that whole thing humming. I'd be real curious to see what Clint looks like away from him. Yes, they did have some success in New Orleans, but like I said, Cody has watched the tape. He's dug into the numbers, all that stuff. I'm going to lean a little bit more on his analysis right out of the gates on that. But like I said, real interested to see how everything pans out for the Raiders and their coaching search. We will be diving more into that as the weeks go on. We're going to be bringing more of our friends onto the show to dissect it all. And obviously we'll be hitting on the news, as it comes along too. So like I said, exciting times for the Raiders. Even though it was a horrible season, I think this is what needed to happen for them to get to the point now where there's a real turning point for this organization. We talked about it many times on the podcast, but there's a clear vision forward of how they can turn this thing around and how they can do it. They've got a lot of ammo. They got all that cap space. They got the number 1 overall pick. And then now, again, they're looking for their coach. We'll see who emerges as that guy. Like I said, guys, make sure you keep it tuned here. We will be keeping you updated all the way through as news develops. And again, we'll be diving deeper into who each and every one of those guys are that are interviewing for the Raiders and trying to give you guys that deep dive into their scheme, how they could fit it, and how they could actually like build a team and change this roster for the Raiders. That was a fun conversation. So we're definitely going to be bringing Cody on more again in the future. And I got some other guys in mind as well to help me break down not only the coaching candidates, but also a guy like Fernando Mendoza as well. So that's going to be coming your way, in a couple days here, guys. Like I said, we're going to shift to now more of our off-season, cadence, I guess you could call it. We're going to be releasing episodes on Tuesday and Thursday mornings at 9 a.m. here on YouTube. If you guys listen to the audio version, that does come out a little earlier. Actually, we dropped that wherever you listen to your podcast at 6 a.m. So if you want to catch it a little earlier, you can do that. But keep watching on YouTube, obviously. It's more fun if we can see the back and forth and all that. College Football Playoff National Championship, that Monday night. I may try to do a live, reaction after that one because I want to get some interaction going with you guys. And I do want to start doing more live shows as well and just kind of experiment with that a little bit. That's not something I've done before. I've tried it. Well, actually, I did try it for the first game in New England against the Patriots. Had some audio issues. I didn't turn my freaking microphone on when I was out there in New England, so I taped the entire podcast and didn't realize my audio wasn't on. So I had to retape that thing. But probably going to try and dive into it again here from the studio, a little bit more of a controllable environment. And I want to hear what you guys have to say and the interaction as the show is going on live. Like, I think that's something that'll be a lot of fun. So going to try and get that rolling as well. In the meantime, though, guys, thanks for watching and listening, however you are taking us in. And hey, we'll catch you next time on Tuesday. Take it easy.